I decided to back Rosalie, and here are 5 reasons why I did. First, my history with Uchibikoya and Totsuka Chuo, which include games such as Ostia, Aqua Garden, Sweetlands, have been overall very positive for me, with Sweetlands in particular landing in the top 10 of all time for me as of last year. The design philosophy of his bigger box games, mixing cozy art and aesthetics with complex gameplay, has struck a chord with me, and so I have faith that Rosalie will indeed to continue to deliver the highs I have come to enjoy with these particular games. Number 2, with Rosalie in particular, I haven't played the game yet, but after looking through the rulebook and watching gameplay, there are a few elements that stand out to me as appealing. First, I really like the worker placement style mechanism of putting a checkmark on your own action clipboard and then passing it along to opponents so everyone receives a different player board with filled out spots, tightening what you can do each turn. Of course, you can copy an action, but at a cost that you must pay to the player that blocked the action you wish to take. This brings an element of hoping that what you want to do will be readily available on the next clipboard. And if you are feeling particularly nasty, you can try to plan ahead and take an action that the opponent next to you needs, similar to hate drafting in card drafting games. I don't particularly like this game because of that, but overall, it introduces the tough decision space that I enjoy in strong interactive worker placement games, where prioritizing actions as efficiently as possible in the correct order, appraising for what might be taken later on by others, is key to playing well in these types of games. Number 3, continuing on with mechanisms that appeal to me, the concept of debt in this game, while a turnoff for some, is something that I really enjoy in a game. I've come to really like games that feature a debt payoff aspect, such as Rosenberg games like Le Havre or even games like Brass. The game does this well, where you are able to pay off your loans and eventually turn your game from being a very almost punishingly tight experience at the beginning of the game to having a sort of well oiled machine that works really efficiently near the end of the game. This concept is such a fascinating and pleasing experience for me in games. In my personal life, I am no stranger to debt from school, and while that hits too close to home for others, to me, it kind of gives me hope, in a sense that if I can reach the end of the tunnel in a 2 to 3 hour experience of a game, turning that debt or giving it away, paying it off, in a sense, if I could do that, I one day too can reach that end goal in my lifetime for real. Therefore, the fact that this debt payoff is so prevalent in Rosalie makes it intriguing for me. My fourth reason is a game comparison that I've seen floating around that and the game comparison is to my favorite one, Agricola. So I can't turn away from a game that if it genuinely receives that comparison. I can see some parallels between the games, such as with the theme and the tightness of gameplay when it comes to resource management, the worker placement, and even a feed your workers aspect in both games. The one thing that I really like in comparison to both games is the customization that you have for yourself in how you approach the game every time. In Agricola, you accomplish this first by a draft of occupation and improvement cards before you even play the game. And then during play, you play these cards from your hand, engineering yourself asymmetric abilities throughout the game. In Rosalie, it looks like you choose a main character with an ability and 4 out of 7 cards that add to your asymmetry. So while that doesn't occur during the game, rather, you can have a different experience every time and set it up so that it is quite different with the different combinations of cards for your character. And so you could play the same character over and over again with different combinations. And that's the kind of variety that I enjoy in a game that keeps me coming back over and over again. In particular, this kind of game before you play a game, right? How are you going to approach this game differently as a decision, whether that's to draft something or to set it up in a different manner before you play? And in addition, touching on the solo mode here, it's mostly the same from a multiplayer perspective, only that you have a deck of easy to follow cards that block what you can do on your clipboards as you're passing it around to yourself, creating a challenge but a smooth experience when you play solo, which is similar to what is offered in Agricola and other Rosenberg games. At first impression, Rosalie seems like a mix of a few games such as Agricola, I'll also throw in Fields of Arle and Beer and Bread, which offer an alternating seasons type of gameplay for how you approach different sets of worker placement or action selection. You have games like Jisugi and Anachrony, where you start off with debt throughout the game. You don't acquire it like you do in games like Le Havre and Brass, but you start off with that debt and you pay it off throughout the game. And honestly, any game here where you start off in a negative space, first games that come to mind are Feast for Odin and Ark Nova, and you slowly build from a negative space, whether that's debt or not, or victory points, and you slowly gain those points throughout the game and pay off the debt and things like that. And then finally, Venus and Planta Nubo. Those are both economic contract fulfillment type games with lots of different ways to push and pull levers, different ways to gain points while you're fulfilling basic contracts. And so, and even with Planta Nubo having a more steampunk type of setting, I do get that sense from Rosalie as well, very similar to like a Studio Ghibli type of experience. And so I really do like that and find that setting enjoyable. And then my fifth and final reason, this is probably the most important reason of all, because I could experience all of this at some point next year, experiencing Rosalie from a copy of someone else that has bought, or if I happen to find it on the second-hand market. I really want to have the game so I can play this solo, and that really helps its cause for me to be able to play the solo and explore the different characters, trying to achieve the highest scores possible with each one. And I intend to do this with Sweetlands when it does come soon. I kickstarted it, a reprint of it rather, last December. And as opposed to other games I've passed on this year on Kickstarter, such as Brass Pittsburgh, the Wheel of Time game, I've made some videos on those. At least here in the United States, I have more confidence in those games being able to be found at an easier rate at retail or otherwise here in the States. I think it's harder for me to have that same faith with Uchiba. So, for example, with Sweetlands, Aqua Garden, Ostia, it's been relatively harder to find here in the States. And for us, we rely heavier on kickstarting events to be able to acquire a copy. And those have been ongoing, for a couple of years. It hasn't been a one and done event, but, all that to say too, is that I don't know if Rosalie will be made in a quantity that will fulfill, retail stocks everywhere, right? Like, I don't know how available it will be outside of the Kickstarter, and who knows when the next Kickstarter will be. It might be in a few months. Maybe it might take longer. So there is an element of uncertainty, unfortunately, when it comes to how available this game is going to be. And so that kind of pushed me towards the edge of deciding to back this game. It's a tough reality that we face. At times, we're bombarded with a ton of games, quality games too, and not having enough time, money, and shelf space for them all. But you kind of have to game the game, right? And find those games that you feel like you are going to be able to play, whether it's by yourself or with the game group, and sift the ones that you feel like are really worth your time and effort and your shelf space. And so for me personally, Rosalie kind of fits that experience. And I think that's a big reason why I want to back it. It's going to be really nice too to kind of get some of the extra components, not the deluxeified ones. I can pass on those, but like the expansion material and some of the other stretch goals and things like that are also incentivizing for me to go ahead and take the plunge right now. And so, it might be hard to find in the secondhand market to find all of those components if you really do enjoy the game. Like you play the base game and decide that you want to have more of it. So I don't know. It's kind of you got to make a decision now kind of experience. And so, for me, I feel like Rosalie is the right choice for my personal table and shelf and my collection. So I'll keep you posted when Rosalie does come in next year, and do some gameplay videos and my thoughts on it after I have played it myself. things are, of course, subject to change. And so we'll see if any changes happen, how the game looks in about a year. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think of Rosalie, if you're excited to play it, if you're going to back it or not. And we'll have a conversation there. So thank you for watching this video and hope you have a great one. Thank you.